If you're like me and you love coffee, and if you've drinking any local made in Hawaii coffee, chances are it could have come from Kona. Kona pumps out about 3 million pounds of green bean coffee every year. You may be curious how it's made. Right now I'm up in the hills right above Kona, where almost half of the coffee for the state is produced. Let's dive into it. Let's take a look. How is the coffee made? And what does it take to get from a berry on a tree to a black liquid in your cup? Today I'm at Heavenly Hawaiian Coffee, which is a 40-acre farm that sits right in the middle of the Kona coffee belt. This is a coffee bean in its beginning stage, simply a cherry on a vine. According to the field crew, a ripe bean is ruby red and the seed doesn't have any discoloration.
A nice and then when you got two beautiful beans inside.
Absolutely. Looks like
no damage from beetle. These are like creme de la creme.
Once a plot of the field is determined to be ripe, the pickers come in. Many of the pickers here in Kona are on a temporary work visa, and they are paid per pound of ripe beans that they pick. Hey, buenos dias, señor. ¿Cuántos años trabajar aquí?
Apenas es temporada.
Oh, sí, sí. ¿Cuántos meses por temporada?
4 o 5 meses.
Oh, 4 o 5 meses, sí, sí. While all farm work is physically demanding, the pickers told me that coffee is nice because there are no thorns or mosquitoes. For them, the biggest challenge is having nimble fingers to pick only the ripe red cherries and not grab any green material. Oh, and one other thing, you don't want to stand in any fire ant hills, because those things will just chew you alive. After the coffee cherries are picked, they are brought down here, what is called the hoshidana, for weighing and drying. What is a hoshidana, you ask? When I first saw the field operator raking the cherries, it reminded me of seeing monks rake the rocks around temples in Japan. Turns out the word hoshidana originates from early Kona plantation days when most of the farmers were Japanese. Hoshi in Japanese means dry, and dana roughly translates as area. So, dry area. Kind of makes sense when you think about it. At first I thought the term was just being used on this particular farm, but it turns out that it is an industry-wide name. Cooper, who is a field operations manager here at Heavenly Hawaiian, explains what happens after the coffee has been weighed by the pickers.
Once we have all those bags weighed up, we're going to put our coffee into our hopper here, and it's going to be loaded into a vat of water down below. And that's where we're going to be separating good cherries from bad cherries. Good cherries are going to sink, they're going to be dense, and they'll get pumped into our triple rinse here, where a stream of water will push the cherries along. A series of augers is going to push the cherries eventually into a cylinder that's kind of shaped like a cheese grater on a wheel, and it's going to slice the cherry open. A pressure plate is basically going to separate or squeeze the beans out from the cherries. The cherry skin will get collected into a trailer, and we'll use that later for compost, or you can even create products like cascara tea, which is tea made from the skin of coffee cherries, or we'll just basically throw it back into the ground and allow it to help fertilize the trees for future growth. The beans, however, are going to get separated from the cherry skin, work their way through a series of rinse chambers, and then finally end up into our wheelbarrow here, where they drip dry before going onto our drying deck, the hoshidana. And basically, after we run our coffee through the wet mill, we need to dry it for a period of time, and we need to dry it within a moisture content range of 9 to 12%. So we basically are going to leave that to the power of the sun, and we place it in this greenhouse-like structure. We want to encourage airflow, so we don't actually cover all of the sides, but we want to create kind of a greenhouse effect to help dry out. This would be 6 days of picking. On top of that, it's gonna indicate the date to us that this pile was picked and processed. So it gives us an idea of how long this pile has been drying on our deck for. Here we have an example of a coffee cherry. And so when we get our coffee at the end of the day, it comes in this form. We are going to process it with our wet mill, which is going to remove the cherry skin. And on top of that, through a series of rinse chambers, it's gonna remove this kind of sticky substance known as mucilage. In doing so, we are able to dry it on our drying deck here in the form of parchment. Once the beans have reached the moisture content that we're looking for, we are going to cure it in a vault for a minimum of 6 weeks before we send it to a dry mill. And at the dry mill, they are going to remove the parchment skin and the silver skin, which will leave us with our final product of green bean before it ends up being roasted.
After the cherry is stripped down into green bean form, it is roasted. Since many of the coffee farms on Kona are small, they collectively use a handful of roasters near the farms. I was lucky enough to talk to Bruce Cornwell, the owner of Kona Premium Coffee Company, who has been roasting coffee above Kona for more than 25 years. He currently roasts for about 12 farms in the Kona area.
Longer it's cooked, it breaks down the caffeine.
So a dark roast has less
Caffeine
than
medium.
right. And you call it a light roast, a blonde roast? Is that what you?
Yeah, in our machine it's all about degrees.
Okay.
So blonde would be 440, medium would be 450, 452
Okay.
degrees.
Okay.
Medium dark would be 464. So that's 10, 12 degrees difference that it's cooking. And then the dark is 472 or 474. So you're anywhere in there 10 degrees difference. Liquid flow air bed. You can do 120 pounds an hour, 3 40-pound roasts.
So sassy. Stay sassy?
Sassy, yeah.
All right, sassy.
Ship over green, or we ship over flavored roasted coffee.
Okay.
So they'll repackage it under their label.
After the roasting process is complete, the coffee is bagged and tagged and sent to its shipper or shop. I asked the owner of Heavenly Hawaiian, Bill Myers, the ups and downs of running a coffee farm in Kona.
We have in Kona right now, we have a disconnect between the price that farmers can get for the crop and the cost the farmers have to pay to grow the crop. So a couple of years ago, when we had gone through droughts, the price of coffee had gone quite high. We were paying, for those who follow the actual prices, we were paying $26.50 a pound for green coffee, for a pound of green coffee. That's an historic high. That's as high as it was. Since that high, about 2 years ago, coffee prices for green that you buy in bulk have dropped 14%. And look poised to drop another 5% this year. It's because we had a bumper crop last year, and it's because the demand for our coffee, Kona coffee, has declined. For those people who enjoy Kona coffee, this is going to be a great year. We haven't seen a coffee crop in Kona that is of this quality in years. The rains have made the beans bigger. We're getting very high quality beans because the farmers in Kona have really turn the key on how we treat rust, how we treat the beetle that's been decimating the beans. That's all behind us, at least for this year. And the quality of the coffee in the early harvest is great, and it looks like it's just going to get better. So you're going to have among the best cups of coffee. We're likely to have the highest scores in the competitions this year. So you can get ready to have a good cup of coffee, and because of other factors, you're not going to have to pay all that much for it. You're certainly not going to have to pay more. You might even see a small decline in price. And in this day and age, if you can get a little settling in prices, that's not a bad thing. So it's the best of times for people who enjoy Kona coffee.
I really had a great time on my trip to the coffee farms in Kona. And whether you're just a coffee drinker or if you're interested in the coffee industry, I highly recommend you visit for yourself, even if it's just to grab a cup of the freshest Kona coffee that you can get. And not to mention, some of the views are outstanding. This is Spot. Aloha, signing off. Thanks for watching.